Part 2 of the lecture on glaciers. Okay, here's a word you should know, a fjord. It's a Scandinavian word. There are a lot of these in Norway. It is a glaciated valley, but, well, where's the valley? Again, remember I told you that there were, under the ice, valleys being scraped out. Here are the crevasses, and this thing is flowing down, scraping out the valley. What happens when this melts away? It leaves this, a fjord. This turns into this. In this case, if the glacier runs to the ocean, and after the glacier melts away, the ocean comes in, you end up with this. Oslo, the capital of Norway, is located on a fjord. Yeah. This is an old glacial valley. Glacial valleys are typically U-shaped. Take a look at this. They're different from river valleys. River valleys tend to be V-shaped. These ice flows create U-shaped valleys. This is Yosemite in California, and here's some more crazy people. Oh, that just scares me. At one time, this area in California was glaciated. Let's go back to, can you believe I'm doing this and wasting your time? This. Not bad. I believe that's Half Dome or El Capitan. People climb this. Again, glaciers will scrape out the side of this. I'll show you striations, little marks they leave in there later on. Here's Bridal Veil Falls, which you can't see in this picture, I don't think. But this is a place where you had a glacier running down this valley, but the ice was all the way up to here. There's a glacier coming down this valley, which ran onto this glacier, and left a hanging trough. In other words, one glacier valley flowing onto another glacier valley, but you've got to imagine this thing was filled up with ice. Once the ice melts away, you're left with a waterfall from a hanging trough. Here's what goes on. Here are the old mountains during the colder parts of our history. This is what happens as the ice melts away. And there you go. This is what we have now. Here are valley glaciers, and you can see the U-shaped valleys that are left behind. Down here would be the zone of ablation, and this is the point where the valley glaciers have probably melted away. Now, a word about moraines. What are these weird piles of dirt? They're left behind by the glacier. I guess we'll have to come back to moraines in a while. Here's a cirque, otherwise known as an arena in English. This is where the glacier begins, very high in the mountains. It will scrape out an area. Keep in mind, there used to be a lot more glaciers here. They have since melted. Here's a cirque lake, otherwise known as a tarn. A lot of people think of glacier water as being completely clear. No. If the glaciers are scraping away at the rock and grinding it up, imagine putting rocks into a blender. Well, one, your mom would be pretty mad, but let's say the blender's really tough. You'd end up with a super fine rock flour, which is what this is called, and it fills in a lot of the glacial outwash or runoff. Right next to glaciers that are actively grinding up rock, you don't find crystal clear water. You find what's called glacial milk. When you have fractured rocks, those rocks will be plucked up by the glacier, and you end up with these steps. Some formations. A horn is a mountain peak that is left behind by a glacier. A mountain ridge right between two glaciers is called an arête. It is a great word in crossword puzzles. Again, here's the cirque, or the arena, where a valley or a mountain alpine glacier starts. Here's an ice-dammed lake, and we need to talk about moraines. Rocks that fall from the arête, or the side of the glacier, will get carried down. When this glacier meets this glacier, you end up with this long line of dirty material. That's called a moraine. When the glacier melts away, you end up with, well, this long pile of unconsolidated, unsorted material looking something like, well, this. This was the site of a glacier, and these were all the rocks that came from up here got carried down year after year, and then just dropped off. That's a lateral moraine. Why lateral? Well, think about football players. They will hurt their lateral ligament, or they will, I don't know, can you say toss? Throw the ball to the side behind the line of scrimmage, and it's called a lateral. Anything to the side is called a lateral. Something that's in the middle is called a medial moraine. So this lateral moraine, once it hits this glacier, becomes a medial moraine. Okay, another view of this. Nice smooth mountains. Cold ice age comes along. You get cirques started by glaciers. When it's all done, you end up with horns, arêtes, and you should have that little symbol over there if you want to be correct. Here is a hanging valley where this glacier ran onto this glacier. There's a cute little cirque lake, and again, the U-shaped valley. Here is a typical arête, and believe it or not, there is somebody who's gone walking over here. Probably the photographer coming up taking the picture. This would not be me. These guys are crazy. There are glacial valleys. Ah, finally. This is a terminal moraine. Again, all the rocks that fall on the glacier get dropped off down here. If the glacier is moving, the moraine will be scooted with it, or the glacier will ride over the moraine. Here is a lateral moraine, but when this glacier meets this glacier, it becomes a medial moraine. And here are end or terminal moraines. If the glacier is receding, we can call that a recessional moraine. And all this stuff that's washing out, well, being scientists, we came up with a technical name. It's called outwash. Here are moraines forming in Alaska, 1928, 1959, 1979, and 2010. One thing should be obvious. This thing is definitely melting back all the way to, I don't know, somewhere in here. But it leaves behind these ridges of unconsolidated material. This could be the mountain, but you also end up with moraines. People think glaciers are clean all the time. They look that way from afar, but you get up close to them, like these people are, and you'll notice they carry a lot of dirt with them. Anything that came down from the hills, anything that's been plucked up off the bottom and then stirred up, it's in there. This is kind of a cool exercise. How many glaciers help make up this one glacier? Well, we know there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, hard to tell, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. A lot of glaciers are all coming together here. Here are the lateral moraines left behind by a melting glacier. Here's the end or terminal moraine. This is just beautiful. Now, some other formations left behind by glaciers. Eskers. Water can get down into the ice in the glacier, and the water will carry gravel, sand, silt, and clay. When the glacier melts away, any of the gravel, sand, and silt and clay that are in the little tunnel through which the water was running in the glacier just get dropped. They aren't stacked up nicely. You don't separate the gravel, sand, silt, and clay like a river does. They just get dropped. Everything's jumbled together. And it's called an esker. When a glacier runs over a hill, it will round off the hill and create what's called a drumlin. Not to be confused with Gremlins, the movie. Here are kettle lakes. These occur where you have large continental glaciers covering a big area. Here are braided streams on the outwash plain. I just like this stuff. I love these old pictures too. This is something you don't have to know, but it's called a paternoster lake. We would call them a cirque lake or a tarn. Here's a horn. Here's the arête, the U-shaped valley, a moraine, terminal moraine. Here's another terminal moraine. I guess we could call this a recessional moraine. Here are hanging valleys. Now, this is across the northern part of the United States, right near the Great Lakes. All these black marks in here, they're where we find terminal moraines. Why would all these moraines be right across here? In fact, they extend all the way across the northern part of the U.S. and over toward New York. More crazy hikers. Notice that the moraine, the pile of debris stacked up by the glacier, can form a lake. Here are the steps. Here are some glacial lakes. Once the glacier is gone, of course, the rock flour will settle to the bottom and these will become a little bit more clear. You will find this kind of thing up in the Weminuche Mountains in Colorado, or the Weminuche Wilderness in Colorado. Again, here's an esker. Here's a kettle lake. And the loose material just dropped off by a glacier. When the glacier melts away, the material's just dropped and it's not sorted well. It's just called till, T-I-L-L. Till is what forms a large part of the New York area. This is in Dahlen, North Dakota. And that's an esker. This was once covered with ice. This was a stream running through the ice. And when the ice melted away, all the material that was in the stream bed within the glacier got dropped. If you're walking across a glacier and you fall into one of these streams, well, good luck. Not good. This is what the esker looks like up close. Everything is just mixed up. It's not separated like you would expect in a river. Something else, erratics. Large boulders that fall on top of the glacier can be carried for hundreds of miles, and then when the glacier finally stops, these big boulders are just there in the middle of flat land, which is strange. Again, here's a drumlin. Here are kettle lakes. When the glacier retreated, it may have left pieces of ice down on the ground. When the ice melts, you end up with a kettle lake. Is this the water from the original glacier? Probably not, but it did leave the indentation. And these are all over the northern part of the United States and Canada, and all over the southern part of New Zealand. Something your book doesn't talk about, and this is strange. When the glaciers scrape across the earth, they grind up rocks into flour. That flour can get blown away into big piles of debris, and this is called loess, or loess, and it's great for farming. And if you over-farm it, you can end up with huge amounts of erosion. This is loess, I believe, in China. Also, every year when the glacier goes through its summer melting cycle, you'll find layers just like in a tree. Outwash, freezing, outwash, freezing, outwash, freezing. So these are called varves, and they're almost like tree rings. Every ring will represent a melt cycle, usually one a year unless you have some strange weather thing going on. Where do you find loess around the world? Here you go. Across here, it forms some great farmland. Across Europe, across Russia, and across China. Left behind by glaciers, probably advancing from the north and from the south. We talked about a horn a while ago. This is the Matterhorn. On the border, it's on Switzerland, in the Swiss Alps, right near Italy. This wasn't even climbed until 18-something. And it's not to be confused with, oh, I thought I had a picture of the one from Disneyland. Oh well. This is the mountain that was imitated at Disneyland, and the little roller coaster runs through it. I love that thing. Take a look. You have glacial valleys over here, a U-shaped glacial valley over here, and glacial lakes. Again, a hanging valley with Bridal Veil Falls in Yosemite, California. And this is the glacial till. If this were a river, you'd find this stuff separated. When a glacier drops its load, well, it just drops the load. Everything goes together. Now, this was a problem for the early settlers in the United States because they settled in New York, New Jersey, and places like that. Well, that was area made of glacial till. If you try to run your plow through this, it was difficult. We will stop here. I'll see you in part 3.